You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for being here today. I'm Kirk Mona, and joining me are Rachel Gimza and Victoria Thompson. We're all naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders, just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. We've got Kirk and Victoria with us this week. Woohoo!
Second show of 2025.
And
happy to be here.
Speaking of me being here, I have graduated from nursing school. So that's awesome. And
congratulations.
Don't yet have a nursing job, still need to take a certain exam, but not being in school anymore, I'm planning to be with you guys a little more often, which will be awesome.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having Victoria around pretty much every week now. So
yeah.
Yay.
Woohoo!
Now with more Victoria.
Yeah.
It's a more Victorian show than it used to be.
Oh my.
Terrible. Well, to celebrate this,
terrible.
To celebrate this and the fact that we have made it into a brand new year, it's the second week of 2025, we're all going on a trip to the zoo. The three of us.
Okay. I sort of have mixed feelings about the zoo, but...
The Rafi song went straight to my head when you said that, but I'm going to just ignore that.
That's fair. I was about to say, I wasn't sure how you all feel. Myself, I really love a good accredited zoo, especially that clearly is taking a lot of effort and thought into the spaces for the animals that are under their care. I think that they can be really an amazing tool for interpretation, as well as an amazing educational tool, and allows a lot of people to create bonds with animals and causes that they wouldn't necessarily know about or otherwise be able to make connections with. For example, like my family, we used to go to the zoo, our local zoo, every year. We would go at least once a year. And my mom, she loved being able to just watch the tigers that were at that particular zoo. And she could watch them. She could sit there and watch them all day. So we're at a zoo. We're wandering. We're on our little zoo trip. I'm having a great time. I've made an entire plan for us to be able to see absolutely everything within the time frame that we have, which is all day.
Okay.
We're going on a zoo trip for myself. Victoria, your children can come. We're gonna have a great time. We're going to spend all day at the zoo. So we're gonna see everything. Right now, we are in the more tropical area of the zoo. And we're looking around. There's lots of birds around us. There's lots of birds. And we're having some great times. We're looking at all the birds, trying to identify all the different birds, having just like the most nerdy time you possibly can. And we hear a pretty loud alarm go off.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And a very robotic voice that says, "Evacuate now."
Okay.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it doesn't seem to be coming from any of the speakers around us, like actual speakers or anything. It's coming from one particular spot. And it's a bird that's sitting decently high up. And it's this little brown, grayish, boring-ish looking bird. And we identify it as the lyre bird. Or Lyre Bird, however you want to say it. I'm going Lyre Bird. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lyre, is that it?
Lyre. Lyre Bird.
Okay.
Now, there are
They
two
are
different types.
phenomenal.
They're so good. There's two different types of lyre birds. There's the superb lyre bird, which was described in the 1800, and then there's also the Albert's lyre bird. Now, The lyre bird is a pheasant or chicken-sized bird. There was actually a lot of debate on whether or not this bird was related to pheasants.
Okay.
It's not. It's not at all. But like people thought it might be. No. They generally dwell on the ground and are actually pretty terrible flyers, but they can fly a little bit. They have like black legs and overall are kind of boring looking with their colors at least. But the males have a more decorative tail. They have these long, thin, like downy like feathers that come out that kind of curve. And then they have two feathers that are much thicker. They look like primaries, which are some of the thicker feathers that allow a lot of birds to like fly really well. Like when you think of a feather that is dropped on the ground, you think of like a primary. And they have like this beautiful brown, white, checkered pattern. And then at the end, like a black eye almost.
Okay.
And the males will use this tail as part of a courtship dance. Now, I started this with a clear mimic issue, but that isn't why they are called lyre birds. When they flip their tail over their bodies, so their tail will come up and lean over their head, kind of because the tail itself is as long as their body. So it kind of flips over itself and as like a little covering and spreads out. And those two specialized feathers curve outward. And it reminded the English people who saw this bird of a lyre, of the musical instrument. The curve reminded them of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. They didn't know of the pure mimicry that happens with this bird. Now,
which is completely insane.
Wild, because these are some of the best vocal mimics in the world. They incorporate it into their courtship dance. They are able to incorporate and learn the different songs of other birds in their habitat. I buried the lead. They are from Western Australia. So they are from Australia.
Of course, there it is, yep.
But they will incorporate a lot of noises that they hear, and especially noises that seem to make other birds flee. So they really love mimicking and learning other alarm noises or just loud noises that they can incorporate into their courtship dance to entice the females to mate with them. Now, this is wild because that means that they could learn the evacuate now and alarm sound, which did happen at a zoo in Australia. Apparently, to be fair, this particular zoo had their lions escape while the zoo was open.
Okay.
So that was an alarm that was going off, and people reacted to that. And the bird saw that, heard the sound, was like, interesting, and started to copy and mimic. It's like, perfect. That's exactly what I want. Yes, the lions were eventually like caught. Everybody left, right? So they've been known to mimic other alarm sounds. They've even in the wild, they've been learned mechanical sounds like construction noises. They've learned how to sound like chainsaws, which I don't know about you. If I'm in the woods and there is a chainsaw noise and I'm just in the woods, not in an area where there's logging happening, I'm going away. So effective.
I've seen like I think it's a David Attenborough video of them when they're doing the chainsaw noise.
Yep.
But then because I don't know if it was probably at a zoo or something is where a lot of that stuff is shot, but these particular birds were really good at doing camera shutter noises. Because people were taking pictures of them all day, so they just were.
Yup. They're also
that's my really bad impression of a camera, but
you did a great job, Kirk. They've also been able to learn how to make the noise of like a laser gun, like pew pew pew. I don't know why people are like trying to teach them noises to see how many things they can pick up, and they are very, very good at mimicking all of those noises, from flutes to original songs from other birds, and they incorporate it all into their song that they are singing as they are doing their courtship dance to entice a female. And the more creative and unique their song is and their dance is, the more likely they are to get a female to join us or to mate with them. So it's amazing. There's still some debate and studying that needs to be done on how in particular these birds are able to make that make all the different noises, and how they're able to like retain the knowledge of all of those different sounds. It does have to do a little bit with their vocal box and how their throat is like structured so that way they can make all of these different noises. But truly, it's amazing. Some of them have even like learned to mimic crying babies very, very, very well, which is kind of scary. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about lyre birds today. I saw the film of the news strip of this lyre bird mimicking the evacuate now alarm, and I just went, I'm sorry, what?
Does the bird like keep doing this? Are they having to put up like signs that say you don't have to evacuate, it's just the bird? Like, is this a thing now?
It's not a thing really anymore, because you are able to, it's not as loud as the actual alarm calls are, and it's just the one spot. They might have had to put up a sign, at least for a little while, and it did make the local news. So everyone who went to that particular zoo was aware that there's a bird who's trying to trick you into leaving.
Gotcha. Well, that's good for the bird. Good on him.
Right? Like, you know what? Why not? Yeah, it's really cool. I just thought that they're beautiful birds, and just what a phenomenal way for them to be able to like attract females and such. Like, you learn all these noises and just go, yeah, I could do that. My God. Anyway, that's all I have for y'all. We are going to take a quick break, and when we return, it'll be Victoria.
Hey, we're back. Way back in episode 53, Rachel, you talked about a famous human cell line that seems to be immortal. You remember that? Drawn from cervical cancer cells of a woman named Henrietta Lacks. Lacks unfortunately died of her cancer in 1951, but her cells, which were sampled without her knowledge or permission, have been dividing and redividing ever since and live on in countless scientific labs around the world. And as Rachel, you talked about, they've been crucial in many medical breakthroughs over the decades, including various vaccines, cancer and AIDS research, and so forth. This strange kind of afterlife seems to be about as close to immortality as any human is likely to get. But there is another animal that manages to rebirth itself in response to damage or stress in a way that actually starts to look like genuine immortality.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And I am talking about the immortal jellyfish.
Oh my God. See, this is what made me like have nightmares. I hated this. I don't like this. One of the reasons why I don't like jellyfish. One of many. I don't like they might not be able to die.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
awful. Keep going.
Well, the Latin name is Turritopsis dornii. These are cute little jellies, only less than half a centimeter across. They have
Oh, wow.
very small.
That's tiny.
Have a transparent domed bell and a visible red stomach that's sort of kind of cross-shaped, and numerous thin hair-like white tentacles, up to 90 of them. To understand how this jellyfish achieves its immortality, we first need to talk about the life cycle of a jellyfish, which is pretty cool.
Oh my God. We haven't gone over it on the show. It is
Oh, I gotta
bonkers.
take it off my list.
So depending where you want to start in the life cycle, I'm going to start with an egg.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with an egg.
Okay.
The eggs are produced by sexual reproduction from gametes that are released by adult jellyfish. Sort of usual egg method for sea creatures.
Yep, fair.
And the egg hatches into a kind of a larva that's called a planula. Or planula, I don't know how it's pronounced. Anyway, the planula can swim, but eventually it settles down and attaches itself onto some kind of solid surface, such as a rock, where it transforms into a polyp. You may, if you were of a certain age, know about polyps if you've ever had to get a colonoscopy, but this is not that kind of polyp.
Yeah.
It's probably for the best. We removed a jellyfish polyp from your colon.
Awful. Painful.
Don't know how that would happen.
Polyps, jellyfish polyps, look a little bit like those inflatable tube men used in advertising outside of car dealerships.
Wacky waving arm guys?
Like the wavy arm guys, exactly.
Yeah.
So they're attached at the bottom.
Wacky wavy arm guy.
And they have tentacles at the top that wave around to catch the little zooplankton that they eat. And polyps are able to reproduce asexually by budding. That means they separate off a section of their body, which can become another polyp, genetically identical, or they can also bud to produce a medusa, which is what the adult form of the jellyfish is called. So medusas are like what you think of when you think of a jellyfish. It's that kind of dome or bell shape with the tentacles hanging down, although, of course, the actual form varies from species to species. And these medusas are the ones that will then produce the gametes for sexual reproduction to make the eggs. And round the cycle goes. So this life cycle is pretty common to all jellyfish. And what I find cool about it, and probably what you were going to talk about more, Rachel, is like that it has both mobile forms and sessile forms. Sessile meaning not moving. And actually, almost all of the members of its class, is it a class, Cnidaria, do that. But some of them, like the adult forms, are the sessile ones, and the larval forms are the medusas. Anyway, I'm getting a little off topic here. It's just pretty cool. Anyway, so this is basically what jellyfish life cycles are like. And this is what happens under normal circumstances with the immortal jellyfish. However, if you have an immortal jellyfish medusa that gets injured, or let's say it's facing starvation conditions, or even just getting kind of sick, it actually can regress in its life cycle and transform back into a polyp. And then it can restart asexual reproduction. So bud off new medusas that are genetically identical to the injured medusa, which is wild. Like, this is the only creature that we know of in nature that can go back to an earlier stage of its life cycle. This is like as if a butterfly got injured and went back to become a caterpillar.
That's bizarre,
Victoria. That's just totally nuts.
Yeah, it's wild. And so as this happens, basically, let's say the medusa gets injured, it starts shrinking and it loses all its structures until it becomes essentially an undifferentiated blob called a cyst.
Oh, that's not a great name.
Yeah.
No.
Polyps and cysts.
Yeah, God.
I mean, Medusa's kind of threatening too, if you think about it.
Yeah, but at least it sounds cool.
Yeah, it does sound cool. Okay, so the cyst will then settle on a surface and develop into a new polyp, which can produce new medusas. And theoretically, this process could be repeated indefinitely, meaning that the jellyfish is, in fact, biologically immortal.
Wow.
Which is, yeah, it's
super cool.
Yeah, super cool. So the way that it does this, scientists are still trying to understand. A 2022 study compared the full genomes of the immortal jellyfish with another jellyfish from the same genus that can't do this. And so they compared where their genes were the same and where they were different. And there were differences in genes associated with replication, DNA repair, the number of stem cells that they have, intercellular communication, and telomere maintenance. So if you haven't heard of telomeres are areas of non-coding DNA that appear at the end of chromosomes, and they gradually deteriorate and shorten as you get older, and it's considered to be one of the main processes that contributes to cellular aging.
Right.
In all animals, not just jellyfish, humans too. And in particular, it seems that in this reverse aging process, the immortal jellyfish is able to basically activate cell pluripotency. So cell pluripotency is when a cell it's like sort of like a stem cell that can become many different kinds of cell.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So like if you think about a human embryo as it develops, it starts out as one cell and it divides into 2 and 4 and 8 and so forth. Well, when it starts out, that kind of cell is not specialized, but as it divides and redivides, it gradually becomes specialized and we get, nerves and skin and teeth and all the things. So the jellyfish is able to take its mature differentiated cells like tentacle stinger cells or, stomach cells or whatever they are, and seemingly kind of turn back on that pluripotency that it had as a larva or a polyp. Except that instead of say that Singer cell becoming a pluripotent stem cell type of thing, it actually turns directly into another cell type, which this may sound like a small distinction, but no other animals do this. And this process is called transdifferentiation. And that's kind of at the base of what the animal is doing. We're still figuring out how, but yeah. It's very cool. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in how the jellyfish does this and whether there might be any further applications, such as to humans. I think research has been fairly slow. The number of people in the world that actually study jellyfish is fairly small, especially tiny jellyfish.
Wild.
Yeah. Also,
at the same time, I don't necessarily want to be turned into a pile of goo.
Right. Yeah.
So it's you can live forever. It's well, we can turn all your cells back into a big pile of goo that that will then grow into another person. And you're I'm good.
It's going to have the same genome as you, though.
I suppose if you're on your deathbed and you could somehow say, well, I'm out, but I'm going to liquefy my whole body, and all the bad stuff's not going to come with me, all the cancer and stuff, but just the good, healthy cells will revert back, and then I'll become baby Kirk again. I don't think anyone's going to agree to take care of me.
Right.
There's some issues there, but
Yeah.
Obviously that's not what the researchers are trying to do. They're trying to learn more about stem cells and how to revert any cell. If you could revert any cell in your body into a cell that could then be turned into anything else, that would have huge implications.
Yeah, or if you can figure out ways of keeping telomeres from shortening, that would help slow the aging process, that kind of thing. Yeah. On another note, a final note, this jellyfish, as you can imagine, a great survivor, and this has unfortunately made it a great invader.
Yes.
It's at this point kind of unclear exactly where they originated because they're so tiny, they tend to be overlooked, so it wasn't something that had been studied a lot. Perhaps they originated in the Pacific, but it has since spread all over the world's temperate and tropical oceans, likely in the ballast water of ships.
Oh, wow.
So it's a Hard to tell how much of
Everywhere.
a problem it's causing. It's pretty small, but it's everywhere.
Wow.
Immortal jellyfish coming too soon to an ocean near you.
Wonderful.
That'll live in my nightmares. Thanks.
I wonder how old, like, the oldest one is. I mean, obviously, they don't all do this. It's an option. They
Right.
can do it.
Most of them get eaten and like don't have the chance, right?
Yeah. But, like, so what are the odds then? Like, I'm sure someone could do, like, the math on what are the odds that there's one that's been around for X period of time or something, like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be cool to find out. Well, my sources this week were a blog post from the American Museum of Natural History from 2015, a page from the National Museum of Natural History with information about the jellyfish life cycle, and this paper that I referenced, Comparative Genomics of Mortal and Immortal Cnidarians, unveils novel keys behind rejuvenation by Maria Pascual-Torner and colleagues, that was in our favorite journal, PNAS. August 29th, 2022.
So good.
All right. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, it'll be Kirk.
Welcome back, everybody. So here we are. It's episode 204. We've done a lot of episodes here, and I feel like we've sort of settled into two distinct types of topics on the show. And it kind of reminds me of back when I used to watch the X-Files with my wife. And we noticed that there were monster episodes and mythology episodes. Now, we're certainly not the only people to notice this or to use those labels.
Good old
but you could divide the show.
Monster of the Week. Yeah.
Yeah, it could divide the show into sort of that Monster of the Week episode where
Very
Scully and Mulder...
formulaic.
Yeah, they're going to hunt down some sort of creature. And then there's the mythology episodes, which were not about mythology. They were about the overarching story arc of all the characters and the grand conspiracy that Mulder was trying to unravel. And I feel like we have two types of episodes, or rather stories within episodes on our show here, much like the X-Files. We have Creature of the Week type stories, which I think I would say both of you
I definitely
did
just
week.
did one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then we have the opposite, not really mythology, but more what I would say are research topics. So often we tend to talk about some new bit of research, and those usually involve some kind of creature, but the focus is more on something new that we just learned rather than how strange the creature itself is. And obviously there's a lot of blurring between the two, but I was thinking about this just this week while preparing for the show, because my topic does indeed feature a creature, two of them, in fact, I guess, depending on how you define creature. But they both seem really ordinary at first glance. And my topic is something new that we learned about them.
Okay.
So first up, we have the tomato plant.
Oh, tomatoes.
Tomato plants are used a lot in research because they're easy to grow. And they're they're actually pretty downright interesting plants too. I still have a few episodes I want to do just on tomato plants, I think. But in this case, as far as I can tell,
is wild.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I can tell, the tomato plant in this case is just a surrogate for like plants in general. The researchers likely could have picked a different plant and come up with the same results. So my point is, don't be thinking this is all about tomato plants. There are tomato plants here, but they just represent plants in general.
The tomato plant is a distraction.
Yes, it's a red herring. This all started in 2023 when researchers at Tel Aviv University put microphones next to plants just to see if they were making any noise. And this was pretty crude at first. They did pick up a little bit of noise, but I think they couldn't quite rule out like background noises. So they went down into the basement of the lab and set up like mini soundproof rooms with plants in them and had microphones pointed at the plants. And what they discovered once they were able to isolate all the other sounds out is that, plants actually make noises. They make a ticking or a popping sound. And now it is important to note that these sounds were in the ultrasonic range, meaning they were above the frequency that humans can hear. And so how loud were they? Were these like these little tiny little whispers? Well, the researchers report that the sounds are about as loud as a normal human conversation.
Whoa.
So that's pretty loud and pretty impressive that these plants are sitting here plants that I know, Rachel, you got a lot of plants at your place. You're surrounded by plants. They are all probably ticking and popping and making conversation as loud as our voices right now, but you can't hear them because it's ultrasonic, which I think is pretty cool, pretty impressive.
How?
Well, what they noticed is that these sounds were not random. There was a pattern. And I think it kind of gets a little bit at this
almost makes it worse, Kirk.
Well, no, it's really cool, actually. They
I
initially
believe that,
tested...
but I'm staring my plants down now.
I'm going to put your mind at ease, maybe. They initially tested, as I said, tomato plants, but also the other famous research plant, tobacco. Both of these plants made this clicking noise when they were dehydrated and needed to be watered.
Oh.
So they went on to study a variety of plants, everything from cacti to corn and wheat to grapevines, and all of them exhibited this loud clicking when they were thirsty, and then were silent when they were well hydrated. This is probably just a physiology thing having to do with how water moves through the plants and whatnot, but it's a cool thing that seems to be pretty universal in plants, that they make this clicking noise when they need water. And this research was published in the journal Cell in March of 2023. So that's pretty cool, but it's not the end of our story. Because remember I said this was about two creatures, and I'm maybe stretching the use of the word creature by calling a plant a creature. But the first
creature, sure.
Sure. The first was tomato plants, and you can see now that they were just kind of a stand-in, why they're a stand-in for plants in general. The second, though, is an animal, because an interesting question arises. Can anything other than our microphones hear this clicking?
Right.
And sure, humans can't hear ultrasonic sounds, but many animals can. And I imagine hearing high-pitched clicking all the time would probably be really annoying for humans. So maybe, I know I have close to 40.
We don't.
Yeah,
I have like 40 house plants just in my house alone.
I
just
have
over
about the same.
At my brother's house, there's 50 plants just in their kitchen alone, and that's not even the main place they have plants. So if we could hear those clicking sounds, it would probably be pretty annoying. Although
it would be really useful, because I'm pretty bad about remembering to water my plants, which is why we only have plants that are pretty hardy. But like if they were clicking, then I would remember.
You wake up in the morning and you're like, all this ticking noise, and you're like, oh, you know what? The plants sound like they need water.
Like the cat coming up to you and meowing to remind you to give it breakfast.
Exactly. Although my dog is always like begging for food early, so maybe the plants will be doing that too. I don't know. But there are many animals.
I need to water my plants.
There you go. There are many animals that can theoretically hear these clicks. Everything from rats and bats and moths can all hear in this range. On land and in water, you've got dolphins and fish and all kinds of animals that can hear in that ultrasonic range. So as we know, when there's information available, animals often evolve to take advantage of that information. Mm-hmm. In fact, it'd be really weird if they did not, especially if this is as loud as like a conversation. Now imagine a whole forest full of plants all making these noises. Perhaps that could be useful. A colleague of the researchers at Tel Aviv University, who also was at Tel Aviv University, but this time over in the entomology department, heard about the clicking plant study and was like, I'm in. Let's do this. So this researcher, I think it's Raya Seltzer, studies moths. And so here's what they did. First off, they recorded these ultrasonic clicks and played them in a large empty, they said, called it an arena. But the speaker playing the sound was only on one side. They then released Egyptian cotton leafworm moths into the arena and studied where they laid their eggs. And interestingly, the most eggs were laid on the side of the arena where the sound was playing. So it would seem to indicate the side that has plants that are in a drought condition or that are thirsty, right? And then the setup was changed. For round 2, they got rid of the speaker and they used real plants.
Okay.
There was a well-watered tomato plant on one side and a dehydrated plant on the other. And this time the results seemed flipped. The moths far preferred the presumably silent plant over the one that was presumably clicking because it needed water. So they laid a lot of their eggs either on or around that the quiet tomato plant, not the clicking one. So that's pretty interesting. But there could be some confounding factors, right? Like there could be other things that are drawing moths to the healthier plant. So it was time to do experiment number 3. This time, both plants were equally healthy and well hydrated, but the speaker was now brought back in and ultrasonic clicks were played next to one of the 2 plants.
Clever.
And again, the moths preferred to lay their eggs on the plant that sounded quiet, and they avoided this little clicking or ticking sound. And so what the researchers propose is that the moths are evaluating the health of the plants that they're laying eggs on based on the sounds or lack of sounds that the plant is making. Well-watered plants are quiet, while a clicking plant is dehydrated and could even be dying. So you probably don't want to put your eggs on it. Now,
Makes sense.
it makes no sense to lay eggs on a dying plant. When you're young, you're probably picking that plant because your young are going to hatch out and feed on that plant. And if it's already died by the time they hatch out, then you're not giving your offspring much of a fighting chance. So when I read this, I had one big question, and that was, what's up with that first experiment, though, right?
Yeah.
When there was no plants in the room, the results seemed to flip. Like the moths seemed to lay their eggs closer to the speaker that was clicking, while they avoided the clicking sound in every other experimental setup. And the researchers did address this. Their hypothesis is that when the moths could not locate any plants to lay their eggs on, but they could hear clicking, they knew that there must be plants nearby. They may not be the healthiest plants, but unhealthy plants are better than no plants, right?
Sure.
Because maybe it's going to rain tomorrow. So when there's no plants they could find, it sort of seems better to at least lay your eggs in a place where you can hear plants, even if you can't locate them, which I think is pretty amazing. I can also note that these were lab-raised moths that had never seen a plant before in their life.
Oh, yeah.
So these are some deeply ingrained instincts in these insects to understand at a deep level kind of what these ticking sounds mean and how advantageous it would be for where to place their eggs. So as you look around at plants, just remember there's so much more going on than we see. I mean, we're on episode 204 of the podcast. There's so many more plant topics to come about things that are going on in plants that we just don't even realize are happening, because plants are fascinating. Keep in mind, plants have been around on Earth longer than animals.
Yep.
They've had a lot of time to evolve, and we're only just beginning to fully understand how complex they really are. So plants, super, super cool, super awesome, and we know more than we ever did. My sources for this information this week was the original journal article published in Cell, as well. That was just on the ticking sound. There's also stories in Science News about both of these studies. And I must point out that this newest research that I'm talking about is very, very new. It has not yet been peer-reviewed or accepted for publication. It was actually on a preprint server, which we've talked about before. That means it is still undergoing peer review, and hopefully will be published soon. I don't really see any obvious reason why it seems like it was just an observational thing. Of course, needs to be repeated, but hopefully we'll see this story get actually peer-reviewed and published soon as we learn more about plants. So that's what I got for you.
Cool.
Thanks, Kirk.
Not a problem. Thanks to everybody for listening, and have a great week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach us by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can check out our website, strangebynaturepodcast.com, and you can support the show and get ad-free episodes at patreon.com/strangebynature. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.